It's time once again for us to discuss Starfield. Bethesda just released another episode from the Constellation Questions series. This time, we hear from lead quest designer Will Shen.
Sure. I'm Will Shen. I'm the lead quest designer on Starfield, and I am also responsible for the main quest.
The first question asked about the random encounter system and how that has changed for Starfield.
So very exciting. This time around, we have entire planets that we have to populate. So we actually have new tech to take whole locations that we've built and put them on the planets. Now you could say maybe you're going to an outpost and you actually discover there's a whole group of people there with a particular problem. Whereas, before it might be just a person coming to you along the road. Now it's an actual whole location that can be put there. And maybe they have a problem like one of our members was kidnapped. They've been kidnapped by some pirates. And we think they're over there. We actually are replacing a whole other location with that person in it and enemies around it. So it's a dynamically placed settlement that is taking you to a dynamically placed dungeon as you're walking through the planet.
So basically, at any point in time on a planet, you can just experience a random encounter anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're really only just scratching the surface of what that tech can do.
This one is very interesting. Unlike previous games, we are no longer going to run into a single person or a group of people, but we are now going to run into entire locations. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Here we go again with the Fallout 4 another settlement needs your help vibe. I really don't think this is the case. Sure, it may have some similarities, however, I think there will be much more involved. I really like this as it adds to the game in such a way that it will make these planets feel quite a bit more interesting. I also love the fact that the random encounter is much more than just a person or group of people. It's an entire handcrafted location with dynamically created population. Plus, the quest that you get will lead you to a dynamically created dungeon filled with enemies. This is why I don't believe it is like the Fallout 4 experience, because in Fallout 4, you knew what to expect from each of those settlement quests. With this, it could literally be anything because it is dynamic, as opposed to the static Fallout 4 version. The next question asked about our solar system and whether or not we would be able to explore it.
Yeah, actually, very early on in the main quest, we take you to our solar system, which in our lore is called the Old Neighborhood.
Nice.
And you'll be being sent there on a mission from Constellation to discover the mysteries of the artifacts. And you'll get in contact with the question of what happened to Earth, but also you'll go to Mars, and there's actually a settlement, one of the early settlements that humanity created after they left Earth. It's called Sidonia, and that's a whole city with its own problems and people to meet.
Now, there is already a bunch of speculation going on here as it relates to what happened to Earth, or as it is referred to in the game lore as the Old Neighborhood. I don't want to add to that speculation, but some of what people seem to think happened is quite frankly not likely to be the case. I do like that we get to explore our solar system, and that we get to do it early in the game. I have always been fascinated with space and the exploration of it. In fact, I study it in my free time, and I've done so since I was a kid. This is one reason I am so excited to play Starfield. The next question asked about the faction system and how it works. Is it like Skyrim, or does it take the Fallout 4 approach?
Yeah, so one of the early things we decided on was making sure that the main quest actually kind of gives you a little bit of a tour of the settled systems and all of the major players there so that we can give you a taste of what they're going to be up to.
We're peacekeepers. We protect the people of the Free Star Collective.
We also discussed really early on, like, okay, do we make some of the factions be in conflict with each other? And we decided, we really want to make sure that you can play through all the faction lines independently of each other. And this time around, we were like, no, we really want the stories to be a little more personal, right? You're influencing the direction of where this faction is going to go. So say the politics of the Free Star Rangers, right? What's more important? Is it justice or industry, right? Where are you going to try to nudge them in this direction or another? So you don't necessarily end up as the head of every single faction of the game. But, obviously all the major characters in every faction quest line will be reflecting on your choices. but it can have far-reaching consequences for what that faction is, what it cares about.
This one was a bit vague, but there was still some really good information given. For one, we know that we will not be put in charge of any of the factions. Rather, we will be nudging them in certain directions. Our choices in-game will determine what becomes of each faction. This is kind of a mix of Skyrim and Fallout 4, as it seems we will be working with each faction to some degree and guiding them into certain things. While I don't know just how far this goes, I can say that based on what Will said, it will be very different from what we have seen in the past. Our next question was about the role of companions.
The companions along the constellation storyline, which is the main quest, they'll have a lot of opinions and points of view about what the decisions you'll be making along the main storyline. We've also added in several times where you can ask them to speak for you. So you might have a companion with you and you'll be challenged to, someone will tell you can't get through here, and you can actually turn to your companion and say, hey, actually, could you handle this? And they'll actually speak on your behalf, and there could be consequences, good or bad, for what they happen to say. And all the usual things you would expect from followers, right? They'll follow you into danger, you can trade equipment with them, and they'll also be crewing your ship, which is new, so they'll be helping out on your ship as well.
Now this one was very interesting. Not only will we get the known experience we've had with companions in the past games, but we will also be able to have them speak for us if we so choose. As one would expect, that can have some consequences though. This can make things very exciting, and I can't wait to see what happens. The last question asked how NPCs will react to the player's decisions.
Yeah, I mean, all the quest lines have major characters, right, that they'll reflect on the decisions you're making, and they'll have opinions about whether they're good or bad, and for a few of the storylines, and including the main quest, who ends up with you at the end, right? There are some, you'll be determining the fates sometimes, whether someone lives or dies, or whether someone's still in the faction or decides to leave the faction. There's a lot of different things that'll happen.
This one was very reassuring. What Will is saying here means that there is choice and consequence built into the game. I have to admit, this is something I was worried about because of how the quest system works in Fallout 76. In 76, there is the illusion of choice and consequence when there really isn't any. Wastelanders is a prime example of this. It really doesn't matter who you side with, because in the end you will still get to work with both factions. The Steel Rain quest line does have some sort of choice and consequence, but it is not really impactful on the overall game, so again, it is just an illusion. From the sound of it, we are getting a very well-rounded experience in Starfield. I am hopeful for what is in store for us in this game, and I can't wait to play it. The NPCs that are being referred to here do not include our companions. While our companions will also react to what we do, they don't keep that sentiment for the remainder of the game. You can convince them to accept your decision. While I do wish this was not the case, I can understand why Bethesda decided to make that distinction. It is a game, and in the end, it has to be fun to play. If everyone hates you because you choose to do something that went against the intent that the game wanted, then it becomes less fun to play, and people will give up on it. This series is great, and I hope that we don't have to wait too long for the next one. Bethesda also released another Meet the Developer Q&A with Will Shen as well. Links are in the description below. So, what did you think about the details given in this episode? Did you find anything particularly interesting? Sound off in the comments below. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and share. And as always, I'm just glad you stopped by, and I'll see you in the next one.